And those two things gave me all the confidence and the energy, and then I went with it, and he was there all the way along, so it was extraordinary.
Land ahoy, mateys!
The archipelago awaits.
That was one of the first exercises that we ever did when we got together, when we started getting together in the mornings and having more conversations.
Yeah.
What we did is basically we looked at principles that either kind of like propel you forward in life or kind of hinder you in life.
Yeah.
And then what we did is we wrote them down, and then we ranked ourselves on a scale of 1 to 5 to say, what kind of principles do we have? In our giving episode, we talked about, you had a really good idea of what you mentioned is like looking back and kind of reflecting on people in your life that has gotten you to the place like where you are today.
Yep.
And that's where I think that would be really cool to dedicate this episode to, is like mentors, like big people that have like an influence on your life.
Yep.
And then that's where I brought this sheet, because this was like one of the first things that we ever did together. And then I wanted to like just say thank you and give you some appreciation because you've been a big person in my life over this last year and a half that has helped me really shaped who I am.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, and then also talk about the amount of impact that like 1, 2, 3 people that can have on your life to really shape who you are in your life, and like opening yourself up to those relationships.
Yeah. And obviously the people in our life, I think sometimes we step back. Nobody's like we hear the term self-made. And self-made means, to me, is that you're the one taking the steps while somebody's there supporting you in those steps. Okay. And it could be subtle ones like just, a comment here or there, or somebody continually that they're there helping you shape. And really you want to step up and rise up to kind of meet them where they're at. And that helps shape you. Yeah. So I think, mentors and people. So like in my mind, nobody's self-made. We have support and
That's where I love the quote, you're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like the people before you and the people around you are just supporting you to where you are.
Yeah.
Because I know one thing, like we walk out into the atrium here and we see a big painting on the wall of Gord Laurie.
Yeah.
And I know he's a person that has a really big impact in your life.
For sure. No doubt about it. Yeah. When I joined the financial business, and what's funny, I was just thinking of this yesterday. It's 30 years.
Oh, wow.
30 years ago this year that I actually left being a sheet metal worker. And I still remember that. I was, visualize jeans, t-shirt, working the big power brakes and bending metal all day. And I still remember I called him long hair Mike. Mike is a good guy. And he said, well, just let me understand this. You're going to leave, because I remember he stands at the other end. It was, you ever watch the movie 8 Mile where they're pressing the thing like in the big, in the car factory? It was kind of like that kind of concept. He goes, so you're going to leave here and you're going to go handle people's finance. It was absurd. Like when he said it, it was like, it almost sounded ridiculous. But I said, yeah, actually, that's what I'm going to do. And
how old were you?
I was 32.
Okay.
I was 32 when I left. So now, in the meantime, prior to that, I was doing like CFP, Certified Financial Planning courses at night just for something to do. Money, numbers were very easy for me. I was trying to sort of shape my life differently than the neighborhood I came out of, sort of things. And I went back to school and I had all these different things to sort of position me. So it wasn't like I was just a day in life, say, hey, I should go do this. I had done a lot of work. So at 32, I went. So there I was, and I went from a pure blue collar world to this white collar world, right? Into the, investments and insurance sort of business. And I was there and I was like, wow, am I a fish in a water? Like, this is ridiculous. But coincidentally, Gord was there, and Gord actually had a connectivity to my brother. Gord worked at one of the big plants here in Southern Alberta, and my brother did. So he knew my brother. And so that was the connectivity just to talk, right? So
did he help get you in the door into the financial services world, or once you were in, you kind
once I was in? So once I was in, yeah. So some other people got me in. Some people I knew that they said you'd fit here, and went in there. And there was one guy from the old neighborhood that was already in there. So I had asked him, and then so I got in there and I was trying to do it, and I was trying to figure out who am I in this new environment, And then, yeah, so I then connected with Gord. And the funny thing is, when I connected with Gord, it was just sheerly out of just connectivity. I just wanted to connect to somebody, like just, like to sort of almost root myself or whatever, trying to figure out. But what unbeknownst to me is that everybody wanted to work with Gord. All the younger advisors, all the advisors wanted to connect. And he, at that time, he was sort of I'd put him in the late 50s, early 60s kind of range. But in the meantime, I had no thoughts of that. It was just, he knew my brother. There was a connectivity. That was something. And really, I hadn't talked to him I'd said hi to him, but probably 4 or 5 months into the business before I, talked to him one time, and we connected over some stuff that just over that connectivity. And it was nice. But I'm behind the scenes, everybody's trying to work with me at a decent sized book and just doing some stuff like that. Right. And was well respected in the business. And then what happened was one day he came up to me, and he must have also sensed that, that it's a tough career and it's a tough change so he came up to me and he just said, look, I run a lot of pension plans and group benefit plans, and there have a lot of members, or a lot of people that are younger, way younger, like families, let's say a 25 or 30-year-old couple, and they're in there and they're working. The one of them's working in the plant or whatever, wherever we had the benefits, and they need some advice. But the problem is, in his mind, he's like, well, I'm 30 years older than them. Do I really connect? Mm-hmm. And you're younger, so why don't you sort of be a proxy for me and you connect to them, and we could work together. So I'm like, for sure. And so,
yeah, what a great opportunity.
What a great opportunity. And what was really interesting about that career is that usually it takes a couple years, and really there's a window in that 2 to 3 year mark that really is kind of the crossroads. You either continue on and it goes, or you continue on out the door. And I was actually at that crossroads at one point. And so there I was, and I was at the crossroads, and I said, you know what? I don't think this is for me. I think I'm a fish out of water. It just doesn't, there's something missing on the connectivity, like not with people, but just the whole idea. I'm sort of, although most people think I'm an extrovert, I'm more of an introvert. And so there I was. And then I was, like in any of those careers that you can do anytime you start in a business, people out there listening would understand that you quit 1,000 times. So there I was about to quit in my brain. And then I thought, what would be the reason I wouldn't quit? And believe it or not, the reason I wouldn't quit was so I didn't disappoint him. That was it. That was the prevailing reason I stayed, was because I had made a promise to him that I would try to do this for him and with him. So that was it. So that thing right there was a game changer, because without it, I would have just said, this.
Well, that's pretty amazing, just the impact that having someone to hold you accountable in that part of your life when you're going through something hard and you're not sure if it's for me, and it's the roller coaster ride. Yeah. And then you have someone there that's holding you accountable. Yeah. Just to push you through that part.
Yeah. And then what the second sort of part that was very interesting was, we thought, well, you know what, why don't we put together 2 or 3 of these advisors in a group? And they at that time, they called them a MAC, a multi-agent corporation. A corporation wasn't very prominent in Canada, but you could put together a few people and coordinate this, and we'll put that together. And so then they sent somebody from their head office, Sun Life did, and this was the expert, but they were an employee, an expert at these business things. And so we met with them, and their conclusion was not to do it. And then I remember walking out and staring at Gord, and we both looked at each other and almost simultaneously said, why are we taking advice from somebody that's an employee when we're trying to build a business? So it just was counter. So we said, tell you what, we'll appreciate your advice, but we're not going to listen to you. So that's what we did. So we formed this thing. And when we formed it, it was quite interesting, because we formed it now. So now it's from the time I've come in, now it's been 5 years. 5 years later, now I'm sitting there, and we formed this group. And so now it's like, how are we going to build this thing? And I still remember this to the day. He said, okay, well, really, Daryl, I'm going to give you my sort of overview here. I could take the lead on this and build it. Now, but he said, I'm already getting to be an older man, and I'll be really old by then. And then, let's say then, okay, then I'm not around or I leave, then you're stuck with what I built. It seems kind of weird when you have the longest runway that you wouldn't build it. you seem to have a knack for putting this together and to do this. Why don't you build it? And I'll be beside you over here. Anytime you need me for support, just ask. But otherwise, why don't you take it where you think it should go? Because so that was a massive deal. Like, because what he really did is he propped me up, and he always did that. He sort of propped me up and said, you know, you're the man to do it, kind of idea, whether I was or not at that moment. And he just said, I believe in you enough to follow your direction, which is an extraordinary endorsement, right?
Well, that's standing on the shoulders of giants.
100%. Yeah. And the second thing he did that what also was, and this one really helped me, was that he would connect me with his clients, but he would introduce me in a very weird way. He would say, I want you to introduce you to Daryl. And the way he would describe me to them before they met is that he's a 70-year-old man in a 35-year-old body, right? So in other words, you don't want to deal with me because I'm old and we're both old. And one day we need this young guy to carry us and to position us and our families. So that's why he endorsed. So he basically endorsed me again, propped me up. Mm-hmm. And those two things gave me all the confidence and the energy. And then I went with it. And he was there all the way along. So it was extraordinary. Like, it was those two things, those gestures were out of this world. Like,
yeah, I think it's pretty amazing the effect that other people can have when they believe in you. Because I think, like, when I reflect on my parents, I think one of the best gifts that they ever gave me was they believed in me more than I believed in myself mm-hmm. when I was young.
Yeah.
Like, they gave me opportunities and they told me that I could do things that I necessarily didn't believe for myself. And just having that belief in myself, well, now, right, has like allowed me to be able to like have this unwavering more belief in myself, right? So having Gord sitting there, being able to set you up for success and say, hey, I believe in you, and you yep. run with it.
Yeah.
Amazing impact on your life.
Yeah. And exactly to your point, that at the different times when we don't believe in ourselves, who arrives or what arrives, in this case, it was Gord arriving. And, you know, you put it out to the universe. This is what I need. I need somebody to believe in me. And he stamps it and believes in me. And so then we went on an extraordinary run of you know, we grew that company over 13 years, which he was a big part of for 10 of it, because I'll have to get to that in a second. But for 13 years, we grew it at a compound rate of just under 25% in growth. Like, it was, wow. We really grew. But coincidentally, he got terminal. He got diagnosed terminal, and actually passed away on the exact 10-year anniversary of our company, at the exact month. He pushed me to the forefront and let me take the steps or missteps and the crazy stuff that maybe some of the stuff I would do. I remember saying, you know, we got to do this over here, and he would stare at me, but he just allowed me to be myself. And that was what was missing at the beginning, was the confidence in myself, but really more the connecting the parts. Because that's probably more of a skill set I have, is how does this part fit? How does this part, and building a team. And that's what I was able to do before, where that was like, you know, being a captain of the team and the leaders of the team. And so I was able to piece together one of the biggest teams at that time. At one point, we were the top revenue firm in the entire country. So yeah, out of little Alberta, southern Alberta.
Well,
yeah.
That part's really cool to hear,
yeah.
Because I see that trait in you. Like you're saying, like, you wanted to be able to go take something, go build something, and Gord said, kind of maybe scratched his head a couple of times, and he said, okay, DK, you go run with it and see how it turns out.
Yeah.
But I see that in you, where you give people the opportunity to be able to run with something, even though it's like, hey, here's a couple of warnings, here's some heads up, but like, you need the space to be able to go do it.
100%. I
even think when we started the business, like out of the Epiphany Group, it was like the first 2 years, right? You guys provided us the venture capital to get started. And if I look about how we were running the business then to how we're running the business today, it's completely different, right? But it's like, it's okay, well, you're going to go on this journey and you're going to learn, but we'll be here to support.
100%. And I think we need to learn those things. We need to learn to go down this path and discover it's not, but have the support. And really, as long as we're not outside of the range, let's say, whether it was me or whether it was anybody like yourselves, like, as long as they're not like crazy outside the range, but we can bounce around the walls of the range and just explore like this thing so we can figure it out. So yeah, he was really good at it. And yeah, that is something I've always paid forward, in the sense that that's what I believe. I believe most of the relationships we have or have had is because of that. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that those relationships always work out and their businesses work out as inside, because sometimes they can't stay on the pace of what they need, or they can't be true to themselves about inside of that.
Well, it's more like natural selection.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Darwinism. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Those that can sort of rise to the occasion or adapt, but then you have to be comfortable with it, and have to be. So I didn't like, one of the things I really prided myself is that if something happened where it didn't work out as defined by the business didn't go or the people didn't go, I didn't go back to somebody I'm not. So I always just said, you know what? I'll just take a look at it as a global math. And my global math is, we're in the rocking chair. I've done this experiment 5,000 times. What's the math? That's mine. So when one happens, it doesn't mean it's, well, then, okay, from now on, you have to micromanage them and do all this. That's not my style. Never will be my style. My style says, you want the opportunity. Do you truly want it? Let's see you rise. And a lot of times people do, and a lot of times people don't. But I'm not changing. I'm not, getting cynical or changing who I am because of that. I'm saying it's just a numbers game. I think certain people will rise, certain people won't, right?
And taking the risk, I think that's a big thing that I've learned from you. And I also learned from my business partner, Nathan, is that like when you go on the journey and you take the risk, you can be worried about the risk. You can sit there, you can think about it, you can crunch all the numbers,
Yeah.
or you can go and you can live it,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And you could be worried about like everything that's going to happen in the future, or you can be focused on what you can control.
Right.
And you can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to leave the sheet metal shop and I'm going to go on a different journey because this sounds exciting to me.
Yeah.
And this is the path that I want to build.
Yeah. And I remember actually, when I left the sheet metal, because there was another mentor that before I left the sheet metal was Tom that owned the sheet metal. Now, so Tom, he treated me like a son, and even his two sons used to tease me that I was their dad's favorite son. I worked hard for him, but he also saw that I cared about the business and did all that kind of stuff. But so he went out of his way. So when I left it was very difficult in the sense. And I remember going over to their house, him and his wife's house, and even though I worked with their sons in that, I went to them and just said, you know what, it's time. I have to go. And I just said, I'm just not like, that business. It was very busy in the summer, then really went almost ghost-like in the winter. But he kept me on. It's just because, because you work so hard in the summer, it kind of balanced. But I told him I just don't feel. I said, the term I use is I didn't want to walk backwards to get my check. Like I'm so embarrassed. And he goes, look, you work hard. And I said, I know. And I said, but I've got to take this step. And the way I looked at it in my mind, and this was no disrespect to him and the family and the business, was that at any time I can take a chance here. I'm going to go take this chance. And I could fall flat on my face, and that's okay. And if I turned around, you could say, well, what if that job was gone? Well, I always viewed that there was that type of job always available to me. That's what I always felt. I always felt that at the worst case, that I could go back to that type of job.
Well, you built the skills at it and you knew you were good at it.
100%. So I could always go back. So the way I looked at it is that, proverbial one, if I was sitting there saying, somebody said, well, what if you go and it doesn't work out? Well, then I guess I come back to this type of job. But I always said to myself, what if it does work out the other way? So when I run into people, they go, well, yeah, I guess I could, do the same thing you did. I'd leave and take the chance. And I said, yeah, but you're not going to. I did. So that's the difference, is I did. And if I fall flat on my face, I guess I'm back there, and I guess then I get into the routine of that life. But the reality is it didn't, and for whatever reason. So, but Tom was very good and always treated me well. And I did everything to prop up his business and put his business forward. And I said, I just got to go do this while I can to try to see if I can do this. Right. So,
So when you think back, say on Tom or Gord, is there any like big principles or big lessons that really stand out to you that you learned?
Yeah, I would say the ones that, like, for instance, treat people like a human. So there's a lot of times Tom would do stuff over and above and recognize the work that I did and reward me for it. And it can be small rewards, and not necessarily economic, but just acknowledgement, just that kind of stuff, that belief in you, that you could see when the thing switched with Tom, that he believed in me. And so then he trusted me and believed in me. And so then you could have that kind of, relationship, if that makes sense, right? So, but so yeah, as soon as they trust you and believe in you, and those things simultaneously are together, well, then I think there's a shift of responsibility for you to them. That that is an extraordinary gift that they're giving you. So then that, I don't care if you want to call it obligation or responsibility to that gift, was saying that there's no way I could let, when somebody entrusts you with trust, you're not gonna let that down. So you're just gonna go that much further, that much harder, that much, you're gonna quit that much less to say, you know what, I've got to meet that thing, because they really went on a limb for me, and for no reason. Like, there's, other than, I guess you work hard and all that, but they must see something in you. But they give you that gift, and I don't want to spit on that gift. So then I just dig in harder to honor that, right? So I think that's it. The gift of trusting you, believing you. It's an extraordinary gift, right?
Yeah, and then also too being shoulder to shoulder building it, right? To have someone there. But I think about some of the first times that we got together. I think one of the kind of first big principles that like I learned from you, it was the push-pull theory. So it's kind of fun. So this is actually what's really cool. Like, this is with Nathan, like I mentioned, my business partner, with you. It's fun to be able to like run against a wall, be struggling with something, and then to have someone that you can go talk about it with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And be able to have someone who has experience inside of the space to be able to give you advice.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, like, okay, well, I'm in the ring. So I now have the choice to be able to experiment with this.
Yeah.
Because one of the big first things that I came to you with frustration about was it ended up being the push-pull theory, which was, okay, you have, say, these different employees or these different people inside of your life.
Yeah.
And I'm running up a mountain. This was the
Yeah.
example I think
Mm-hmm.
that you used, is you're climbing a mountain, right? You want people that are going to be climbing the mountain with you.
Yep.
Or even pushing past you inside
Yep.
of the mountain.
Yep.
Right? But if you think, there's always people that you have to pull up the mountain. So if they're on a cord and you're climbing the mountain, you get to a spot, and then you have to keep pulling those people up the mountain. You kind of have to look around, and you have to say, I was like, okay, should I be pulling these people up the mountain? Because I went through the part where then I just had to really look around me and be like, okay, am I pushing? Like, are people pushing and people climbing the mountain
Yep.
with me? Or am I pulling?
Yep.
Right? And inside of that, I used to do one-on-one meetings with all of the developers, all the employees, and I still do meetings, of course, but I used to schedule these every week, and I said, let's set a goal, let's move to the next spot, like, what are we working towards, where do you want to be, right? But that was the part where I had to have that realization, is like, I'm doing all the pulling here.
Yep.
Which it's great to be able to pull in situations where you need to pull. But what was happening is I was trying to force people to be something that they're not. And that was the problem.
Yep.
So then now I'm in this situation, which I've learned from experimenting, that it's like the door's open.
Yep.
Like, I'm here to help anytime, but the other person has to walk through that door.
Yep.
Because walking through that door is like climbing a mountain and
Yep.
saying like, hey, I want to be beside you. I'm going to put in the work. I'm in the ring experimenting. It's like, I have this problem. And that was a really big concept that I learned I think it was like on our first boat ride. I think I have a recording on my phone actually of some of the notes that I learned. But it was like, okay, I just had to go and sit and like look at my life over the next, like, it was honestly probably 6-8 months for me to like wrap my head around everything, to be like, am I pushing or am I pulling?
Yep. No, and I think you're right. So in our lives, I think if we sit down and think about it, and think about the ease at which we move up the mountain, that if we're pulling, you can say, well, look at me, I've got big enough arms and big enough shoulders to pull them. Okay. But then there's this other thing, is like, what are you doing that for through their eyes? It's that, you're really pulling them to a place of uncomfort, because they obviously can't climb the mountain. Right. And for all of us, we believe in people. So that's that thing you just said. Well, Daryl, you said believe in everybody. So you got 10 people and they're climbing the mountain. You believe in all of them. You do. You believe in them. But they're, at some point, they either can't match that belief, or they're just not designed for that. And then it doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve the company. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve them. So it is about trying to sort that. So if you go, well, tomorrow I'm going to go, and the 10 people company, I'm going to say, I believe in you, then it should be a home run, right? And I'm saying, well, I don't know, because I would argue that there's lots of people that believe in people, but then that belief there turns into disappointment because they just don't arrive the way you. So I think it's about belief, but also recognizing.
Well,
right?
what's amazing too is now since I switched and tackle it more that way, well, what happens is you find out what part of the mountain people want to be on, right? And then yeah, you can climb up the mountain, but now you have support down the mountain.
100%.
And then you
Yeah.
build like that whole chain of people around you.
Exactly.
And then now you actually have more support to just keep running as fast as you can while everyone else is around you.
100%.
And to be able to put that in place made a huge impact in my life and inside of the business.
Yeah, and when we use the term want to, what sort of stage in the mountain they want to or are capable of whether it's all combination. Because I think really when you ask people, they would all tell you they want to. Like if you asked me right now and said, would you like to climb Mount Everest? I'd say yes. But could I? Well, that's a totally different story. But so I think everybody aspires, at least verbally, to move up the mountain. But practically, action, skill set, there's just some of them are base camp, and that'll be forever. And that's not a problem because you need base camp and you need those levels, you said. But I think it's about opening your eyes to how much extra energy. And so then let me just ask you a question then. So and I don't want you, obviously, no names. So if you can think of a distinct person that you're pulling, when you stopped pulling, what happened?
Well, honestly, they went back down to the mountain, the area in the mountain in which they are capable, in which they belonged.
Right. Yeah.
And in some cases, they did end up leaving the company.
Right.
But in other cases, they are actually still in the company and they're at that area on the mountain and they're doing a really good job at being there.
Right. But in both of those cases, whether they've left the company or at that level of the mountain, are they where they need to be?
Yes.
Okay. And is it less energy on you now trying to pull those exact people?
There's like zero energy.
Right. Exactly. So then you have more energy of aspiring to move up the mountain. Right. And I think there will come a day for all of us that there'll be a sort of a plateau within the mountain for ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what you realize is that all that pulling is a lot of energy really for nothing, is at the end of the day, you want to be surrounded. And that's why the old saying, if you're not if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. It's that concept that you want people to be beside you and even better in front of you, right? Now you could say, well, oh crap, Daryl, if everybody's in front of me, then am I the one being pulled? And the answer might be that someday it might be that you're the case, that you're being pulled up the mountain. But that's an okay thing too, because then I stare at those people. So if you said like for Gord, I think Gord was very much at peace that I was moving up the mountain the way I was. I think he was quite proud of me moving up the mountain, right? So yeah. So to me, that's like, what if we could, get this team together and everybody's ahead of you? It'd be like, wow. Because most of the time, for all I think in business, people will find that it isn't the case. That the worry isn't that, I'm really worried that everybody's going to be ahead of me. It's really that too many people are too far behind and the pull is so strenuous on everybody, right? And it's all the way through the organization, through the company, through the team. It's just, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that's where having mentors just makes such a big impact, right? Because you can actually surround yourself with people that are going to help pull you and help pull you in spots where you get stuck. And that's where I think mentors, they could just have such a big impact in your life.
But the interesting thing about mentors too, like I was thinking about the mentors, is that they want you to succeed. So that's probably one of the definitions of mentors. There's people that you come across in life that don't want you to succeed. They're threatened by it. But mentors aren't threatened by the success of the people.
They get happy for
They
you.
get happy for it, right? Right? So, right, so that's in my mind, that's sort of a prevailing thing, is that they want that to happen. They want them to shoot up the mountain. They want that lead. They want to see that unfold because that's the reward for them.
Well, it's fun because if you can have an impact on someone's journey, right, and share your experiences, and then you see someone apply it and actually go off and learn and shape their lives, it's like, well, that's actually pretty valuable. It's back to giving, right? It's like you're giving and you're seeing someone else succeed. Yeah. The other part that I think will be good to close with is that I think when you ask people for help and you actually go to your way to be able to say like, hey, you know what? Like, I really respect what you did. Like, I want to be able to spend some time and learn from you. Like, you will be mind blown at the results that you get from just saying something like that.
100%.
Because I sat down with you, I don't know, it was probably 2 years ago now, and I said, hey, I want to build a better relationship with you. So like I I see what you've done and I've seen what you built, and it's like I want to be able to build a relationship with you and learn from you. And I think you told me that I may now let you take it away, but I think you said that was there one person or two people that have come up and said anything
Yeah.
like that to you before?
Yeah. When you see people, you think, wow, they're unapproachable. And then when you see that as they're unapproachable, then through their eyes, they're sort of saying, why does nobody approach me? It's kind of weird. You think they're unapproachable, I can't go there. And think about a sales environment that you see somebody, oh, I bet you, oh, surely they're taken care of. They've got everything they need, all this in our mind. And they're going, nobody ever talks to me. So yeah, so for myself, I always thought, it was very weird. Like I was in this thing and I would sit down with people all the time and they would say, hey, can we go out for lunch or whatever? And invariably I'd buy them lunch. So it would be, so it's not like, well, I would go out with Daryl, but it would cost me the lunch or whatever. But what they do is they don't ever ask. So we don't ask for the help. We don't ask for some perspective. We don't ask for that. And it's not because the people go, like I'm sitting here going, well, no, if somebody comes up, the answer is no automatically. It's actually nobody really asks, right? And I think you'll find that if you have that kind of wiring where you like to give, then there's not enough there's not enough opportunities to give what you want, right?
Yeah, I think that's the crazy part. Like even just by having the ability to ask someone for help or ask someone for advice or to be able to say, hey, I would just want to learn more about your story.
Yeah.
Like just being able to ask that question like puts you ahead of so many other people because they just won't ask that question.
100%. It's vulnerability, I think. It's that they don't want to show. And I used to see it in the financial ones that what would happen is that actually once the financial advisors had some tenure under them, 5 years or beyond, their learning ability actually diminished because what happened is they're in this window where they go, I can't show up to there and pretend I don't know, even though everybody knows, like, don't know, I don't know, but I can't show up and tell them I don't know. So I just sit over here and I can't ask for help. So you're stuck in this sort of, where if you're brand new, you can just say, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? You don't even think about it. But then as soon as you get to a window, you go, well, I can't ask anybody for help because what they're going to think that I don't know. And even though very likely they know you don't know, but that's another story. But so to me, we get into this window where we go, we don't ask. So then I think what happens is they're going, what can we do? Like, how do we do this? So to your point, I think, like, let me ask you this question. You have reached out to different people and asked them for help. Has anybody ever said no to you?
No, like nobody has said no,
Right.
I don't want to help you.
No.
Like literally, I was surprised because I went through that period of where I was teaching myself how to program, like trying to start the business. I reached out to just a lot of random people on LinkedIn. And I was surprised about how many people said, yeah, I'll hop on a call. I'll shoot you a message. Hey, here's this piece of advice. Oh, you should go talk to this person. Like just by flipping stones and being able to ask, so many doors open up. And I was like, honestly, that was something, and I still do it to this day. I like when I meet someone and they have an interesting story, I'm like, well, let's get together. I just want to hear your story and just be able to like see and be able to learn from what you've done, right? Because I think there's an aspect where a lot of the people that you meet, like there's something to learn from them.
I think we can learn from everybody if you want to know the truth. I think we can learn from everybody. For whatever reason, we stop asking for help. And I don't know if it's a vulnerability, it's like, and maybe it's an ego driven, the master we're serving, but the reality is we don't, like, I sit here in our business with all this, yes, I have a fair amount of experience, but I would view myself like 2 out of 10 in terms of what I need to learn. Like, so it's forever like, and to me, it's not a weakness. Like, hey, can you help me with this? I don't really understand it. This is where we're at. What's the big deal? What are they going to go? Wow, you should know. Like, I've never had anybody ever say that. So in my life, I was lucky to have some very clear mentors all the way along. But I have relationships that I learn, and I've always believed. This is what I've also believed is that if we're sitting in a meeting, imagine we're in a meeting with people with 20 years experience, and then somebody walks in and they have 1 year experience. If we take the attitude that, hey, they only have one, they can't sit at our table, right? Then we rob ourselves. So a funny story, when I was in the financial one, there was a gentleman that a well-respected career, and he'd been there, but he was really very vocal about the tenure he had. So every time you talk to him, if you asked him how long you've been in the business, he knew it like just in a second. He could tell you, I've been in it 22 years, 6 months, 2 days, like almost like clockwork. So every time when I'd meet with him every quarter and have a discussion with him, he would always almost start with that. Like, I've been in it. So what was happening is that it was very evident to me that we would have discussions, but he didn't view me as somebody at the table. And tenure was the package. So at that particular point, let's say he had 33 years and I had 6 or 7. Well, mathematically, you would know there's been no way I ever could match him, because every year. So I thought I would just be, taking a different approach to him. And I just one day sat across from him and I said, so I played into it and I said, well, how many years in the business? Well, of course, I've been in 34, 8 months, 12 days, right? And I said, so then I sat like I was a Johnny Moron there. I was like, well, I've been in, I put my fingers up, and I've been in 6 years, and so whatever. And then I said, well, in 2 years, you would be at 36 years, 8 months. And he's looking at me. And then I put up 2 more of my fingers. So I'm going, I'll be at 8 years. And I turned to him and I said, it just dawned on me that every year I'll never match you in tenure. And I asked him, when do I get to sit at the table as a peer of yours?
And what did he say?
He sat back, and he always did, because he had his big desk, and I would sit there, and he said, point taken. And from that point, because the point is, what if I have a good idea? What if I'm sitting here and you bring an extraordinary idea? So to me, this idea this is something I view is that learning doesn't come from, like, when you say, well, Daryl, you have 20 years experience and I have 2, so I'm going to learn from the 20. My view is we learn from everybody. So if I stop, like if I said the criteria is you can't enter this office, like I just said, it was 30 years this year in the business. So if I said nobody can come into my office unless they have 30, then I've robbed myself of all the learning, because I've learned just equally as much by sitting with you over the last couple of years, right? And it allows me to pay it forward all over the place, right? So to me, the idea, when we walk into a room, we don't put tenure, because that robs us of. We put ideas. And it doesn't matter if the idea could be from a news source, 10-year source, 50-year source, right? And yes, there's wisdom, but part of the wisdom comes from knowing that I don't have enough wisdom to shut out everybody that it has 1 year, 1 minute, because that might be the foundation of the next biggest idea.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I think it's like on the opposite side of that is you see that person with 20 years, like you said, and you can put them on a pedestal, and you never go and you never approach that person, right? And it's like I went through a phase. It was actually a year of my life where my theme for the year was take them off the pedestal. It's like you don't have to put somebody on a pedestal. It's like I went to the gym and I saw people that were like in really good shape, and I put them on a pedestal, right? I would probably walk by people like yourself that have built amazing businesses, and I would put them on a pedestal. It's like the pretty girl at the bar, right? It's like you think, oh, everyone's going to go talk to her, but probably no one goes talk to her, and she's standing there thinking, well, am I not pretty enough for anyone to talk to me? Right? It's like you put that thing on a pedestal, and then it's like you're just not yourself, and you're not willing to approach it. So I think that is like the big challenge for anybody that's listening to this episode. It's take whatever that thing is off the pedestal and ask for help. Like if there's somebody in your life that you admire and you're like, you know what, I actually really appreciate that about that person. I wish I embodied more of that characteristic. It's like you should go ask them for help. Go hear their story. Like ask them to be a mentor, right? Like you said, be direct. Sit across from them and say, hey, like, how can I sit at the table? Like I want to be at the table. How can I get here?
Yeah, and I think that's an extraordinary piece of advice, because I think to your point is that it's all in our mind, because I don't sit here and view it. There's no pedestal. I'm on ground floor of everything. I view I'm just starting out. So this is the thing that my learning ends when I'm in the box, like, or in the old rocking chair, but I'm learning as fast, and I need ideas from all over the place, and I need to be reminded of stuff. Just And yeah, I think that journey. So we rob ourselves by doing that. And I think to the point is, from if you look on both sides of that, it's you got two isolated people. You got the person that won't ask what they think's on a pedestal, and you got the person that you think's on a pedestal. They don't think they're on the pedestal unless there's something wrong with them. Like the reality is, I just think I'm just the same as everybody else. But they don't treat me that way sometimes. But to me, then you're saying, well, why not put all that facade and all that bullshit down and connect? And then what could happen? The worst case they can tell you is, I'm on the pedestal on time for you. I've never found that.
That could be a good thing, though, because then you're like, all right, great. I don't want to ask any more questions.
Right. And it reminds me of just this one. I'll tell you the last sort of funny story that I think connects to this. So we used to be able to, because we qualified as a financial firm, we were able to go to these conventions all over the world and all that. So there was this elite conference. It's the best of the best. And it was an insurance conference. So Cam, off our little financial team there, he said, why don't you go to it? And he was relatively new in the business. So imagine him, and he's a 6 foot guy, tall, 5 guy. And so he can't hide in the crowd. And so he goes to this, and he doesn't know anybody because, this is sort of his almost first time. So he's staring around, and he thinks he recognizes at least somebody that he's seen the face before. So he walks over to the table with him and his wife. And so he's going to ask if he could sit. There was 2 chairs if he's going to sit down. And he said, excuse me, do you mind if me and my wife sit down? And of course, most of the table, all the tables said yes. And then the one guy beside him stood up. And then I won't say the guy's name, but the guy stood up and said to him, I'm Mr. X. I made $1 million last year. That's exactly what he said. And Cam goes, I'm Cam. I didn't. so there are some people that think they're on the pedestal. Most everybody, all of us, are just trying to move forward in life. So take a chance and see what happens. Yeah.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
Anchors up!
Time to set sail.